So if everybody can hear us at 6 o'clock, we have a quorum. We have 3 people live and 1 on their way via Zoom. So we will start off with additions or deletions to the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or deletions besides one I have? Hey, Chad's here too, so now we be 5.
Richard,
Laura?
I saw that we have the roof and the capital fund materials in our board packet, and just recalling that the thing that I wanted to make sure we touched on before it was too late was how to apply surplus this year.
So we have the Dover roof is under old business, okay?
Yes, and how to apply surplus this year is really my question.
Yeah, well, also we also have a review of the meeting warning too. But
Okay.
okay. Anybody else? Chad, you good?
I'm good, yeah, thank you.
You guys good over there? Okay. The only thing I had is we somehow missed, Kate, financials. We can't remember them every. So I'm going to add financials after budget review, because that will allow Lori to leave.
Awesome.
In case there's any questions on
best.
financials. And there's no
I knew I
Greg.
should've
Oh,
run up
Greg
with
is
you.
here too now.
And I don't know who MJS is.
That's fine. Hey, somebody is MJS on the TV. Can you just tell us who you are? Or can we? Oh. Did they move? No.
Yeah, it shuffled,
Oh.
but they're still there.
MJS, can you tell us who you be? Now they're gone.
You scared them away.
Maybe it was the wrong meeting. Okay, if there's nothing else for additions or deletions, members of the public, I saw a couple. I see Alan, probably Alan Block. Is that you?
That is me, Rich.
You have anything for us?
No, just paying attention.
Okay, Raymond Reed. No particular order. This is just how you appear on the screen, folks.
Yep, I'm here, Rich.
Yeah, do you have anything for public?
No.
Okay. Bob Nelson.
Nothing for public.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And Dana, you're the last one. I'm sorry, you're probably first one on.
No, sir, thank you. Just listening today.
Okay, cool. Members of the staff, Greg, I think you're here for a couple topics like a roof and PCB update. If there's any, do you have anything else?
No. I'm just here for moral support for Miss Garland and the capital budget.
That's why Miss Garland's sitting next to me, because I told her I would block anything that was thrown at her. I figured out a
Well done,
big block. Dwight isn't as big.
Yeah.
So, nothing from
Security.
staff.
Thank you. My bouncers.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to budget review. Yay!
All right.
Hi Tracy, you look tropical. I don't get the hearts with the beach and stuff, but
Oh, because there's hearts on it.
yeah, there's hearts on her shirt.
She loves the beach.
Okay, so we're under budget review. We're gonna have the 4th look at the draft budget. Remember, for right now, we're gonna talk about the operational budget. And did we lose Laura?
She might be walking in. Do you want to hold?
No, go ahead, because she can catch up. I don't think she had much on the operational, and she does.
Okay. So on your summary sheet, and this was sent last meeting here,
Yeah.
so nothing's changed. On the summary sheet, that kind of sums up everything, actually. The budget overall is up 4.78% in expenses. Revenues are down. Most of that reduction was the small schools grant, which will be picked up,
Remember,
which
we're
was.
talking operational, so.
Yep. That's what
Right,
we're talking
revenues is not part of it.
Okay.
Remember, we
So-
need a budget first.
Okay, so the expense budget is up 4.7%, 7.8%. Is there any questions on the operational budget as far as line items that you might want to review or ask questions about? I didn't
Go
put the
ahead.
numbers on it,
Kate.
forgot.
So if I were to attend my town meeting tomorrow and somebody were to say, I heard the budget's up 40%, I can say with confidence, our expense budget is up 4.7%.
4.78.
4.78%
That is
from
correct.
last year.
Yes,
Operational.
Yep. Okay.
that is correct.
And we won't know how it will shake out on our taxes until both towns meet and figure out what their stuff is, and then we will know more at our annual meeting that we hope to see everybody at on April 30th.
Yes,
Right,
and
exactly.
those are only projected tax rates even at that point because the yield won't be set until probably June. And so that's important for people to understand that whatever's publicized in the annual report is just a projection.
And it's not when we meet, it's when the legislature determines things such as the yield and determines what they're going to give for grants. And also when we put everything together, because we also have to be concerned about the CLA, which is down for both towns. We're both about 10% down, like 10 cents down.
And
10%.
whenever it's possible, we try to buy that CLA rate down, that rate down.
We used to,
Yeah, the CLA,
Right,
you
right.
don't really,
But now we know we have some
That's-
bigger items in the forecast, so that we don't want to worry too much about buying things down. We want to make sure that we're sound and secure and making good financial decisions for the health of both towns.
and that we will have that discussion. That's going to be an article when we get to the next topic. So if you guys don't mind, real quickly, at the Dover pre-town meeting that got brought up, and I told them it wasn't germane to any of the questions, except I couldn't remember the word germane.
Jermaine?
Germany. Anyways, I did state that, there is, there's a lot of things that go into what the final tax rate is, which includes the CLA, the operational budget, the yields, it's all those numbers put together, and a lot of those even won't be set in April. And if you remember, in the past, we've also shucked and jived at the annual meeting to ask for changes that have occurred between the time we put the report together. So we really need people to come to pay attention and to listen. We also will be doing we always do two, even though we're only required to do one, informational meetings. So in the beginning, for the two board meetings in April, we'll have an informational session for both of those, which is going to require us to move the meetings around again because we're meeting in Dover. So we'll probably have the second meeting next month in Wardsboro instead of the first, so that we can because we try to meet in the town opposite than the meet where we're going to meet for the last meeting, because we'll have the most up-to-date information.
We're also going to bump into the vacation week too, I think.
I know we are,
Yeah,
but
we always do.
for April.
So you're talking about April?
Yeah.
April will reverse the order.
we haven't decided that yet,
Right,
but
that
that
was-
needs to be a discussion
Yeah,
because
okay.
we're required to do one informational meeting
Yeah.
10 days before the annual meeting. And then we do the second one in the town we're gonna have the meeting in, and we try to tie it into the regular meeting. So we'll start at like 5:30 and do an hour of pre-meeting, and then we'll do the
Makes sense.
board meeting. So those are good things to tell people tomorrow if they ask you.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. So is there any questions on the budget? Chad, you set?
Yep, I'm good so far.
You guys good? Okay, so I'm gonna ask you one question. If we cut $500,000 out of the budget, what does it look like?
Didn't we do this last time?
Yeah, we did, but I wanna just be on the record again.
Okay.
I even remember your answer, but I'm hoping.
See if it's the same.
No, just because I know that's been brought up from a few people that I've heard.
So if you reduce the budget by $500,000, your budget would be a reduction from last year, year over year, of 2.
No, well, what would we lose? How could we take 500 out of the budget?
Oh.
We determined that an employee, a full-time certified teacher is
Is
around
about-
100.
Yeah, 90 to 100, so it would be 5 full-time employees, teacher contracted employees, or multiple para positions as well.
Okay. So, I mean, it would be a pretty deep cut.
It would be a pretty deep cut to the elementary budget, right? So remember that you really can't take away from $500,000 from the secondary. That has to be planned for, even though we really don't know for sure how many students are coming in. We, we plan for what we know, and we wouldn't want to cut the secondary by 500,000 and then have an abundance of students move in and then be in a shortfall at the end of the year. So unfortunately, the way the budget works in River Valleys is that 500,000 would come out of the elementaries.
But we could take some out of secondary.
You could?
Because I also don't want
You could.
people to think we're threatening that we're going to cut staff if the budget is not approved. But we could take some of that out, and then if we wound up having more students come in, then we would just have a shortfall we would have to make up the following
You would
year.
end in a deficit, right, that you would have to make up the next year. Correct.
Okay.
Good job.
Go ahead, Chad. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, quite right. I was just kind of thinking the math in my head as we're talking about secondary. And the flip side of that is if we happen to lose roughly, 25 students, Lori, for secondary ed, that we would save that 500,000?
Right, it's about 20,000 apiece. Yeah, so the other side of that though is, so it won't affect fiscal year 25, but if you lost secondary students, your count of students would go down for the fiscal year 26. So you'd have a deficit to make up, and your next year's budget would be, if you lost that many students. If they were real students that you lost. If you're just cutting the budget, that's fine.
But yeah, if we lose real students, one of the things that Lori was saying earlier is that, we have less income, and some of that less income is because we have less students. And when we have less students, we get less help from the state for what little help we get. Because what's our numbers down this year over last year?
I think it was,
This year over projected next year?
yeah, I think, what did I say here? 12 students, 15 students budget to budget. If you look at the tuition grid here, was between
that's just
year over year.
secondary.
Just secondary.
But we also, what is our
It's a trend, though.
what is our weighted at membership at for the two? Because that got a little messy because of the changes in the law.
Yeah, so that's actually an increase, right? So you picked up long-term weighted ADM from year over year because of the new weights. So, and you picked up actually 39.67 students, which I say in air quotes because this is all part of the weights. You obviously don't have 452 students in the River Valleys district, but weighted you do.
And that .67 student is really difficult to educate depending which part of the 6-7 that we got of the student.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, Chad, are you good? Is that?
Yeah, I just wanted to, make sure that we were recognizing what the opposite is. And, granted, I don't foresee us losing that many students, and I would hate to see that many families that are part of our community all of a sudden up and disappear, with school-age children, because, having, the younger people in our community is really important. But just kind of recognizing what that could do, on the flip side, because we'd also not want to see ourselves lose our, professional teaching base, because that will directly affect the younger kids. So, unfortunately, there's not a great answer any which way. And I think we need to continue to support our faculty as best we can, and continue as a community to do what we all do collectively to make sure that families know that this is a great place to live, work, et cetera, and, continue to feed our schools both in the primary and secondary levels.
Thank you, Chad. Dwight, you all set?
Yeah.
Kate, you good?
I'm good.
We lost Laura, and I don't see that Mike's joined us, but Scott has. So I guess if there's no questions on the operational budget, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the operational budget? Yeah.
You wanna wait for
I just,
Laura?
no.
And the operational budget is that 6.8 number?
Yes, 6.845217.
Got it.
21668.
Well, yeah, you get.
Oh, you're
change
rounding
there.
it off,
I'm
okay.
rounding it.
Thank you. Why do we put change in anyways?
Because I didn't change the formula on that, but I did on this.
Okay.
All right, I would like to make a motion that the board approves bringing forward the budget number of 6.845217, $6,845,217 forward to the school district meeting this year
For budget for
For the-
FY25.
for the FY25 operational expenses.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Meredith, did you get that number? Where'd she go? She's up.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is, so we have an operational budget. Okay, so the next thing,
Just a budget.
One.
Or the last.
It's the, yeah.
That's
you
the
guys
last
did
one.
the
Usually it's the
last
last one to the last one.
okay, so for now, we're good with the draft budget, or we've approved a budget that we'll present for operational. So the next thing that we have to look at, and some of this we still have to work on. Chad, we're gonna look at the draft warning. So we have some live copies here, but you got yours all set? So the big difference between this one and the last one we looked at is I took out the one article about the roof where we were gonna use some of the advantage that was given to us by the caps that was taken away. So it took one article out. So it's the, remember the voting is gonna be the day before on April 29th, and that's actually what is considered the last article, Article 12. There's one director from each school, one school director from each town gets elected. So that's all there in Article 12 to be voted on by Australian ballot. Make sure it's Article 12. So then Article 1, we elect a moderator, which is pretty standard. We've been doing it every year. A clerk and an assistant clerk, to set a stipend for an assistant clerk appointed by the clerk, and to elect a treasurer. Has anybody got any issues with the first three articles? Are we all good with those? And if anybody sees any typos, I'd really appreciate it. Let me know, but I think I was pretty good. Then the next Article 4 is a stipend for the school directors and the chair, which is the same as it's been the last couple of years. Did I miss something?
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay. And then Article, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, two quick little things. I'm having a hard time finding my copy and email, just to follow along. But we raised the stipend last year, didn't we, for the directors?
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yeah.
We stayed in line with what the Dover Select Board was doing. That was why it was brought up last year.
Right.
Thank you for that clarification.
Chad, if you check your email in about 2 minutes, you'll have it.
Thank you, Bob.
Are you guys, so we're all good with that, right? Okay. And then Article 5, approved mileage reimbursement. That's been a pretty standard article, at least in Dover forever. I think it was in Wardsboro too, previous to River Valleys. So what we're saying is that you don't get the high mark mileage, but if you did mileage in October, you get whatever the reimbursement rate was in October. Okay. Article 6 is another standard one. We try to move all the reserve, we try to move all the surpluses into the reserve fund, general reserve fund, just so that nobody takes it away from us beforehand, and it's just not sitting out there. We know where it's at. We can have real numbers. Again, that's been an article that we've been doing for 20 plus years. Article 7, set the annual tuition rate to approved independent schools at $20,966, which is the Burton sending school tuition for the 24-25 school year. And that, again, is a pretty standard article. That is the correct rate that was confirmed by Lori. And our high school tuition rates, there is a handout that we've had in the past. It runs the gamut from, what was the low, Brattleboro at?
Yeah, BAMS and BUHS at 18.3.
To the high of?
20,966.
Okay, what's Leland and Gray in Twin Valley?
Leland and Gray is 20,865. And Twin Valley, I have not confirmed yet because they didn't. Anyway, 18,720 is what I'm predicting.
Okay, so even Leland and Gray is within $100 of Burton now. And it varies. Some years Twin Valley's been higher, and Brattleboro's, for a while Brattleboro was super high. It was one of our highest schools even. So it moves around. Again, it's based on their budgets and what they're doing. Any questions on Article 7? Okay. Oh, I did get asked, why is that on every year? Everybody recalls why that's on every year, right? That the law states that we would pay the statewide average high school tuition or an amount voted on annually by the electorate. And we were petitioned in Dover, and I believe you were petitioned in Wardsboro to go with this Leland to the Burton sending rate. And we said if you get a petition and you get it passed the first year, we'll put it on as an article, but it has to be warned every year. Everybody good with that? Okay, so the voters of River Valley's Unified School District approve the school board to expend, Kate,
$6,845,217.
$6,845,217.
217.
Which is the amount the school board is determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. Any questions on that?
Well, can we spend more than that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you laugh, but
I know,
when I
that's
first
what-
got on the board,
Yeah.
the law stated that if the school board spent more than was approved, the school board had to make it up personally. Seriously.
Don't look at me.
For a long time.
No, it was crazy.
Really?
Yeah. Because they wanted us to stay within our bounds, and it was easier to do before we had all these requirements and everybody putting their hands in our pockets.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, again, if like special ed costs doubled,
Yeah.
and we had to do something, or if something happened at the building and we had to bring in, like during COVID,
Right.
we do spend it, we can spend more, but this is what we're asking for. But the voters will get to see that the following year, and they can determine, that guy Rich and Dwight are running for school board, and they did a lousy job keeping the budget under control. So
That's true. Okay.
everybody, Chad, you good with that?
Indeed, thank you.
Okay. I wonder where Laura went.
Do we know where she was
We're
coming
worried.
from?
Yeah, I am too.
What's that?
A little worried
she
about
would have
Laura.
been
She was on
probably
her
in
way here.
Brattleboro.
Oh, well, she gets in dead zones.
Yeah, but I mean, she's coming
It's
here.
45 minutes from Pratt, so.
She was on at a little after 6, right? And it's 15 minutes.
Probably give her 5 more.
Give her 5 more, and then we'll try to reach out to her.
Yeah.
Okay. Article 9. Shall the voters of the River Valley Unified School District fund its reserve funds in the following amounts for the 24-25 school year, and fund those reserves with a transfer from the general fund or raise in taxes or a combination? So this is one I'm not sure of yet, and I think this is one that we're going to need to discuss at the next meeting. And I've asked Lori if she could throw some numbers together to look at this for us. So the last couple years, we've taken money out of the general reserve, and we funded the building fund and the transportation fund. I believe we were 150 and 100 last year. 150 to buildings and 100 for transportation. how are we doing with the reserve fund? So that it's,
So, do you want to look at the capital, the capital reserve funds here, or just reserve funds in general?
let's look at the, yeah, I like that one that you got
Okay.
right there. That one I understand. So on the last page, right, of the packet you gave us?
Yes, so this should be, get this one out earlier today. It is the RVUSD capital/transportation plan balances.
Chad, do you have that?
Yep.
Okay. So you want me to explain it so that everybody
Yeah,
understands
I
what
can
they're...
explain it either way. Go ahead, you do it.
So this is the capital building fund and the fleet management broken up. And it has your starting reserve fund balance as of fiscal year 24, the beginning balance. And then the annual contribution, which was 100. I'm looking at the capital fund. And then what the capital expenditures were planned to be for 24. I'm not exactly sure if we're on target for 75,000 at this point.
I'd say not.
And so our ending reserve balance is 259,000. So you bring that forward, right? And so then what you're determining is what do we need to fund the capital expenditures for 25, which ties to this sheet here, which is the facilities condition assessment. So the fiscal year 25 has the roof in it. So you can see that it doesn't, $100,000 is not going to fund, obviously, the roof
But
there.
there's a $400,000 shortfall.
Shortfall, which continues on, right? If you only put in $100,000 a year, you can see by, fiscal year 2034, you're 1.7 in the hole. So this is all based on the new facilities assessment report that came out that Greg put together for us here that projects out to 2034. So that's what this document is here. She's here. Good. The other thing, which is not on here, it's not anywhere actually in your packet, but I'll just throw out the number for you. So what you ended the year in fiscal year 23, your reserve fund, which goes back to whichever article that was, every year you transfer any surplus into the reserve fund, is $1,148,395. So that's looking pretty healthy for a general reserve, an operational reserve fund. So just to have that number in your head
Let's
as well.
stick with the building and then we'll go on the vehicle. How's that?
Yeah, no, sounds good.
Okay, so on the building side too, just a couple things. I think, Greg, we're gonna be way over because we spent more than 75,000 just on the floor in Dover, didn't we, in the gym?
Yes, sir. You spent about 110. And
So-
I think you were at about 78 and change on the windows in Wardsboro.
So we spent closer to 200, so that number's off by 125.
Okay.
It does appear, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so-
I'm sorry, I didn't update that.
No, so
number,
let's do that, so we're looking at more real numbers.
Okay.
And again, we're not gonna be able to make a decision tonight. I'm hoping he gives some guidance.
175, is that what we think?
200.
No, more like 200.
Yeah, 185 I would think is closer to where you're at. Because the roof was, the floor was 82 with 35 in asbestos removal. So what's that, 117? And then I think it was 78 or 79 on the windows. So that, well, yeah, it'd be about 190, low 190s, right?
Yeah.
How about 200?
I'm throwing in 200
200
apparently.
sounds
So
Sorry.
obviously for fiscal year 25, that is a negative 525,000
Well,
if the roof is done in
for
25.
FY24 though, that's gonna make us 125. That's gonna carry forward about 125.
134,
We're gonna carry forward 134?
yes.
Okay, so that's if that's the carry forward, but
Yep.
that's not when we add, okay?
Right.
So that's a good number to kind of keep in, so just for round numbers, let's do 150. Let's say we're gonna carry forward 150.
Okay.
because it's easier on my little brain today. Okay, so next year, and again, I know that the state prepared a report, the facilities report, but I have not really had a chance to go through it, but it missed a lot of things, and some are good and some are bad. Like, it had us on a septic system at the Dover building, and there was 3 or 4 things I glanced at it, and I think I sent to Greg a couple things like, I don't know what they're talking about here. So we really do need to spend some time with that, and I may make Dwight, and we may have Dwight and Mikey go through all that for us.
Sure.
To really review that and make sure we're accurate. So on your second sheet that Lori gave us is the Dover and the Wardsboro. So under FY25, you're looking at $12,000 for paint, for blue paint. We're not going to paint any white paint. $630 for the roofs. $11,000 for domestic water storage tank. Gosh, maybe somebody listened back then. The fire alarm system, the kitchen hood insulation at $65, and $40 for more play structures, and $42 in Wardsboro for a fire alarm panel. So that's where that $760 comes from. So one of the points that Laura was trying to make earlier, and what I've been seeing from some of the legislative reports, is that the legislature is thinking about or possibly going to do something with some funding for capital projects, but they don't want to fund existing buildings. They want to fund new buildings. Is that where they're headed, or is that not going to go anywhere?
I would expect that that's closer to where we land as a priority.
So, and then if we go from 2 buildings to 1 building, they'll really like that. But they want a new building, and that may be something that we want to think about. So I guess our question is we know the roof is bad on the Dover building. Are both roofs really bad? Can we get away with doing 1 roof? Then the other questions are, do we want to think about, because this is such a huge number, and if we were to take all the reserves we had next year, we would be down almost ground zero, not having any reserves at all. And then, but we'd have a new roof, and we'd have all those items in there. Or do we want to try to spread it out over a few years? Do we want to borrow some money? Do we want to pay some? Is there a combination of something that works?
Chad's gonna head up.
Oh, sorry, Chad.
No worries, Rich. If the priority is going to be to funding new buildings, are they willing to line up buyers for the old buildings?
Probably not.
To what? What did he say?
Buyers for the old
Buyers.
building. What are you going to do with the old building?
Real estate. I actually had an interesting suggestion come through on that today.
Housing.
Can you share?
Exactly.
No, housing for people. Employee housing or assisted. But anyways, yeah, Chad, again, that's something that wouldn't happen. It would take us probably 3 years just to find a piece of land that would be agreeable, and to get engineering done, and depending on where it is, how we're gonna, the water and wastewater system. I have existing public water systems that it's taken over a year to get a permit just to make changes to the system. So, it's definitely a long-term thing. So I think where Laura was going before was, is that something we want to have a discussion on? But if we spend $600,000 on a roof, it's kind of, we're locked in there a while. Now, the other thing is, remember, we were doing all this PCB testing because the state wanted to be heads and shoulders above everybody else, and they put all this money aside, and now all of a sudden the money's gone. So we've done all this testing. We don't know if there's going to be any funds to help us remediate the issue, or are we just going to ignore the issue? Is the state going to say, well, we don't have any money to help you, but you still have to remediate the issue? We don't know what they're going to do, and we don't know how that's all going to sugar out. So I guess those are some thoughts on the building. So I'm going to shut up and let you guys talk. Is that Greg?
Yep.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, the other concern there, Rich, too, is with the radon. You have the radon scheduling is tested, or testing is scheduled for both buildings, I believe, next week. And that's similar, Rich, where that was something they did, and there's no money for it. There was no money with the testing, and there'd be no money to help with the remediation if it works out that we need to add systems to buildings. So that is kind of another added cost. And then the question kind of then becomes, right, do you maybe try to push this out and then maybe try to put a bunch of things together, right? Like, we're not doing CFLs anymore. So do you do lighting upgrades in both buildings together where now you might access some Efficiency Vermont money? Boilers, right? Do you think about a wood chip boiler or whatnot, again, to access some Efficiency Vermont money? I wonder if by bringing the building roof up to code for insulation, if there's any money there to grab. So, if you push it out a little bit, there might be some benefit to trying to target, which honestly, I would love to sit down with some of you guys who've got a lot of experience in this as well and say, hey, what could we put together that kind of are like systems that we might be able to, even if the state doesn't have construction money, might have, Efficiency Vermont savings to be found.
Yeah, but even Efficiency Vermont, they're, what are they, 1% if you're really fortunate of a project now? I mean, it used to be some substantial money. Now it's hardly anything.
Yeah, true.
Well,
And then my only other,
there's money
no,
right
let me finish. And then, but where you were going, which was a really good point, Greg, is what's next year's pet peeve going to be? Are we going to find out that cinder blocks or bricks? Bricks have always been thought to be a source of radiation. Are we going to have to then? Is there going to be something we have to do that? I think that's why. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but if you start with a new building, hopefully we get all the new building products, and it's 30 years before they figure out those are bad. So, we bought ourselves 20 to 30 years where we could do everything and fix everything and spend $1 million on a building, and then next year all of a sudden they decide that, bricks weren't a good building material, and all the buildings that are brick are going to have to do some type of remediation. Who knows? We do have a lot of asbestos in the Dover building because we have, all the pipes that we have to be careful of, and there's a plan with them, and we know the floor tile for a fact have either the mastic or whatever has, asbestos. What other things are going to come up in the next couple years?
Yep, completely true. And so, then you're right on that edge, right? Of like, especially at 630 for that and some of the other things. And if you do look the year out, right, you're talking 160 on boilers, or 160 on the fire alarm panel in Dover, and whatnot. There's definitely some high dollar projects even in the next couple of years. So, right, if you push that, could you push a lot of those together at least, and then maybe some more of this stuff clears up? We've got to run out of contaminants eventually, Rich. I'm just hoping we do. We've got the lead out of the water. We know where the asbestos is, But again, would that be a time to say, hey, we're gonna make sure both buildings are tested top to bottom, and we'll, anywhere we find it, we'll choose to remove it then, and get it out of the building.
But even with the water systems, Greg, there's water systems that had high iron and manganese for years. The numbers haven't changed, but yet they used to be what was considered a secondary contaminant. Well, now they've determined they're a primary contaminant, and we have to treat for them. So I'm sure there's other things in the water that they just haven't decided to pick on yet. And then with the PFAS and PFAS, all these systems are in it's in almost every system. They say that the rainwater in the Northeast has a higher level than what the federal government wants to see for those numbers. So, I think just for the library building in Dover, what have they spent? A couple $100,000 so far, and they still don't have a water system that works. And what if we had to do that in one of the buildings? There's all sorts of things that, every year it seems to be more and more. It used to be really easy to run a public water system. You test it for bacteria and total coliform, quarterly. And, now there's thousands of dollars of tests we take every year, where it used to be a couple hundred. What is the next thing they're going to do to us? So But you know what I'd really like to do, is hear from the board and how are we gonna, how do we present this and what are we gonna do with this?
Yeah.
So, go to Laura and then Dwight.
Yeah, I would just like to first start by encouraging us. It's just something I'm becoming more and more sensitive about, to be more specific than the word "they," which tends to dehumanize they, which tends to dehumanize different groups. And so I think you're talking about the legislature.
No, I'm talking about the federal government, the EPA.
Okay, so
there's all these groups that can come up with.
Yep, let's be as specific as we can about who we're talking.
Because there's so many groups that weigh into this.
I have so much faith in you that you can. And if we want to solve a problem, it's important that we're specific about where the pain is coming from and that we direct our effort there to do it. And I know you can. I know you can. I have so much faith in you. I'm not sure what the right answer is. I really appreciate all the time that has gone into this and the ability that it gives us to really think. At a minimum, I would like to see this board at least bring to the town meeting or decide on its own to form some sort of, probably bring to town meeting, some sort of building committee. I don't even know if it's a building committee, a new school exploration, or some group that is authorized. Yes.
Town meeting or school district meeting?
Either. Both.
Well, it would have to be school district because the town doesn't vote on that. It would be the school.
Right. Just for the purposes of gathering additional information about, as you said, something like that would take quite a long time. But I do think it would likely be in all of our kids' and taxpayers' best interests to do something like that. Then we have problems to deal with in the interim. So that's my proposal is, let's see if we can get some support for kind of a long-term information gathering that we could come back and say, nope, it's just not going to work, and set the parameters for that. And then, take your guidance on how best to proceed, or the board's guidance on these short-term items. I was specifically worried about applying reserves that we have, given the problems with the CLA, and that those are going to continue for a couple of years. I don't know what the analysis would show in terms of what creates less pain for the taxpayers, to apply that to tax rates over a couple of years, or to apply it to the roof and have a lower bond. So that was my interest. And having said that, I think I'm done.
Dwight.
Thanks, Rich. I have a few things here. First of all, I'm just questioning some of the numbers. I know that I guess we got an estimate on the roof, but I'm just wondering how accurate. A boiler for $320,000, new carpet for $240,000, even 2030 seems kind of high to me. But obviously we want to work on real numbers the best we can. I know, Greg, you put a lot of effort into that. So if any of those we can get more accurate numbers, that would be pretty helpful for us as well.
Dwight?
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. 240,000 was $7.50 a square foot on a 38,000 square foot building of Dover.
Great.
I remember that one. The 320 on the boilers, they had them at 160 a piece, so they had them in two different ones, so I called it that. I did think that number seemed high. I thought actually probably 160 would have gotten you too, but I didn't want to I didn't want somebody to look at what I put here and then compare it to the FCA and say, hey, why did you use such a different number? So I used the number that was there.
No, I appreciate it. I know you put a lot of work into it, Greg. I just, these numbers are going to change, and some of them, you do the best you can. But as each year goes on, we try to get obviously the current years as accurate as possible. There's no question in the next 3 years we have a lot of money to spend here. It's probably 1.5 million if I can add up the numbers for the next 3 years, somewhere in that neighborhood of projects. So, and Rich says it's going to take probably 3 years before we even get some kind of consensus on a new building. So I think in the meantime we need to find ways, and I'm happy to serve on a committee to determine exactly what kind of funding is available, whether federal, state, or how we should finance that, because seems like it's an immediate need over the next 3 years. And one thing I just want to point out, Rich, also on a capital budget like this, you're going to have ebbs and flows, right? And obviously we're in, what's the high one? The ebb or the flow? We're in the high one, right? Okay, so we're on the high one right now. And you look out in 32, there's zero expenses. You look out in 34, there's zero expenses for Dover. So, this is a bump we got to get through, and I think we can do it. And obviously we're not the only one in this boat. As Lord well knows, the state is trying to, has a lot of towns that are in the same situation, so hopefully there'll be some relief there, but obviously we can't count on it like that, but certainly over the next 3 years we need to get through it. And in my opinion is, I know we want a new building, but sometimes it's better to fix something than to start over. But that's something we need to talk about and go to the voters about. But obviously we don't have much of a choice. Over the next 3 years we have 1.5 million expenses that we need to address.
Yeah, and I never said I want a new building. I actually don't, because
I didn't say you. I didn't say you.
I know you do, but some people do. But we've got some really nice buildings, and it's too bad. But when you look at how you're going to get assistance, that was the only point.
No,
I think that I'm not sure who, but somebody, either the legislature or some government person, is I think would rather see new buildings built than old buildings renovated, because we're just going to keep running.
And I think that's an option to keep on the table too. I'm not suggesting that either.
I think a variable of that too is the efficiency of having fewer schools.
Well,
in theory, provides more efficiency and less burden on the overall system too. I think is part of that thinking.
But again,
they're incentivizing it with the percentage difference.
We shouldn't back ourselves into a corner either, because we have pressing needs, right?
No, again, I'm just bringing up some discussion. Kate, you got any comments? Are you good or bad or indifferent or?
I have so many feelings, but that's okay. Yeah, because when we start talking about consolidating into one building, I mean, from a financial standpoint, it totally makes sense. From a standpoint, like, I'm gonna bring up this little soapbox again of, like, when I drive from my house to the Wardsboro school, it's 10 minutes. When I drive from my house to the Dover school, it's 21 minutes. And that's a lot of time for a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old to spend in transport. And once you throw them on a bus, that time doubles or triples. So I know that sounds easy, but it's really tricky and complicated at the same time. So just throwing that one out there. I know we have to think about what's good for them all in the long run from so many standpoints, but throwing that out.
Connected by dirt roads.
Yep.
Chad, you all set?
No, but I appreciate the invitation to the floor. And Greg, thank you for the comment you made before Dwight spoke, because I was going to ask you if you had a sort of a rough estimate of the square footage of both buildings. The idea being, if we take the 38,000 just in rug alone, and we're not carpeting all of Dover, so I'm sure we're a little bit larger than that. Is that fair to say? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No. The building, Dover Elementary, is like 34,000 square feet. Yeah.
Okay. So
it was a healthy number. And 750s. I mean, that's pretty. I mean, right around where we're at.
The cost. But my point is this: if right now what I'm hearing from builders in our area is that on the residential side, $400 a square foot is not a terrible number to have. So looking at a building that would be about 38,000 square feet today, that puts us at 15.2 million. And if we're not looking to really get a project started for 3 years, let's just throw inflation at 5%. Now you're up to 16 million before you've even broken ground. So that is an incredible number to put forth, to swallow. That's what makes it really hard for me. And, the idea that, a shiny penny is better than a dull penny. Guess what? They're still worth a penny. And, I would rather see us, put the investment into, the school district, particularly the personnel, because, we can certainly take that penny and turn it into a nickel based on what we offer our students by supporting the administrators and staff in the buildings. I think we have pretty decent layouts in both buildings as it is. I think Dover is pretty malleable in the grand scheme for how it, you could refabricate what the school offers by, keeping it fresh. And the better we maintain things, the longer they're going to last. So, we've got to really think about the whole number. And, hearing, like as we were talking about Efficiency Vermont and, they'll add 1%, 1% of 15.2 million, 16 million, by itself, standalone is a nice number. But when you compare it to the whole project, you go, wow, that is really not enough to incentivize us to spend the difference.
All set, Chad?
Good to go.
Okay. So just a couple quick comments is I don't know what the right answer is, but there's a couple things I do know. That we only vote on a capital budget for the year that we're going into. So whatever's going to happen in 26, 27, whether the carpet's $7.50 a square foot or $17.50 a square foot, we'll cross that bridge at the time. I'm just looking at next year. We're projecting a $400,000 decrease. A $400,000, and actually we added another.
Yeah,
we
so-
cut it, so it's 100. So it's 500. It's $500,000.
Right.
So it's 625 because I had 100,000 in there that you normally put in. So
Okay.
let's take that out.
Yeah, okay, so good. So, it's a pretty big nut just for the year, the number we have to vote on. I know that the state of Vermont, because I served on this committee and I didn't quite understand it all, but that they to figure out for our spending, for education spending, they came up with a number per square foot for new construction. And Greg, did you see that study or did you see it? Do you remember what those numbers were? Because it is pretty substantial. And the only reason, Chad, that I thought that it may make sense is if the state decides to say pay 50 or 75% of that number. So if it's 15 million, they're paying 75% of it, it's still less than what we're going to spend over the next few years. And then we have the most efficient, everything's up to date, and we're not going to be worried about the next thing that came up. Again, I'm not advocating for it. I'm not advocating against it. It just, I thought it would be I think Laura was looking for that discussion with all the voters, and I don't disagree that it isn't a good thing to bring up. I guess where I was trying to go, because this is kind of the perfect storm. The federal government was throwing around money like it was going out of style, during COVID and after COVID. And, a lot of places didn't use that money wisely. I think at Wyndham Central and at our schools did, we really maximized what we got out of it. So I don't know what the next thing's going to be. And there could be, with the presidential election, there could be a lot of promises made. Maybe the feds are going to give a lot of money for school reconstruction. I don't know. So I guess where I was kind of looking for is what is the minimum we can spend to keep the wheels from coming off, to maybe get through this year, and then as part of it, work on a committee to see what we should do. Because I agree with Kate. If you remember when we first looked at combining the districts, we were proposing one building, and I still haven't gotten all the tar out from under my toenails yet. But it's not something I would ever want to do, because I think that one building for the two areas, even though if you look at numbers, it's doable, it isn't, because again, I don't want to put a pre-kindergarten or kindergarten or first or second grader on a bus for an hour to go drive over from here to Mount Snow. It's not a great ride. But is there other things we can do? I think we really need to look at it. I also think we need to see what they at the legislature are going to do. Another they. With financing, maybe the state legislature is going to start giving some more money, or maybe they're going to come up with some funds to help pay for the PCBs and for, again, like Greg said, radon is probably pretty prevalent in a lot of the buildings, the age of these two buildings. We don't have a clue what that's going to be. So, again, my suggestion is maybe what we need to do is go back to the drawing board, see, can we do half the roof? Can we fix the worst sections in Dover for this year? Can we just kind of do as little as we can to kind of get us through this year, or we could even go to town meeting or the school district meeting again, because it's the school district that votes on it, and maybe we ask that we don't do anything with this article, and we're going to come back to you with a special article in 6 months, and so that we can do something in the fall. I don't know what the answer is, but again, I'm just throwing some stuff out there. We all get to decide as a group.
Chad's hands up as well.
Pardon?
I was at Chad's up too, we got Lauren.
Yeah, let me do Chad, and then I'll get back to you. Go ahead, Chad.
Hey, Rich, it's just one small little clarity for you. Radon's everywhere. Like, there's no doubt about it. Everywhere you're going to find it. It's just a matter of at what level. So, to say, I just don't want anyone watching us to think that we believe that we will find a sort of negative result. And I'm certainly no expert. And I was just kind of doing the math in my head, 36 years ago that I did, a project on radon. And at the time, New York State was going through its real first set of legislation in the real estate industry. And, it was something that, I was fortunate to watch my dad do. And so I paid attention and turned it into a school project. So, it's everywhere. Just the question becomes, is it something that's going to be more harmful than not?
Yeah, no, and again, I'm just saying that I'm sure, like the PCBs were in that time period where they were pretty common in the buildings. We were very fortunate in wards where we didn't have any. And I'm not saying we're going to find any radon, but I don't know what the EPA or the federal government or the state government's going to say. This is our next big thing we have to worry about. And I don't know what it is, but there may be something else that comes up from construction back in this building was built in the 60s, right?
That's what I'm saying. It's naive of us to think that we're not going to find radon.
Yeah. Okay. Just on the radon. Go ahead.
So a couple of things. First off, the bond rates right now are horrible. So they're over 4%. We expect bond rates, all interest rates, to come down at some point if inflation cools, which it hasn't. So that's one point I just want to make, that it's not advantageous right now to borrow money necessarily. I am projecting you to end the year with a surplus. So right around 300,000, unless something goes really haywire between now and the end of school. So if you were to move, break it up maybe into two parts, which may be a good idea to do. So you could ask the voters in article, whatever article that was, 9, to move, 300, 350 from the reserve, which has 1.1 million in it, to the capital. And then you're going to replenish that at the end of the year with the surplus. You've got half of your roof done, right? Or, maybe at that point you go back to the voters and ask to move another 300, leaving you with about 800,000. And you have not paid any interest on that, right? So I'm always a fan of no debt and borrowing from yourselves. So that may be one option you want to look at, asking the voters to move 350 into the capital. So that's, one option. As far as new buildings, I think that's exciting, and, I think there would be a lot of excitement around that. But I would just want to point out, again, that bonds are very expensive right now, and maybe for the foreseeable future. Just to kind of throw out some numbers, right, on a 38,000 square foot building at 500 per square foot, right, you're at 19 million before any site work, right? So if the state picks up 50% of that, 9.5 million, at the bond rates right now, you're looking at a bond payment per year of almost $1 million. So can you cut $1 million of expenses out of your budget, this $6.8 million budget, to save that? I mean, so just throwing out some big numbers just to kind of think about, where, Chad, where you talked about the shiny penny. sometimes it is better to repair what you have if you have good foundation, good bones, right? That's what they talk about in a house. So I don't know if that helps or if it hinders your conversation, but I just wanted to throw those numbers out at you. I'm done.
So you know what my saying is? Hard telling, not knowing.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I know.
And I don't know, if I could predict the future.
Yep.
The only things I was thinking of is I remember when Obama came into office, I call them Obama bucks. And if you had a municipal shovel-ready project, Obama would fund it. And it was like a 90%. You only had to come up with 10%. So what I'm thinking is the state going to get a windfall of money from something? And then it's the legislators of the state going to say, hey, if you've got a shovel-ready project, we're going to give you 90% of your building. Again, please understand, I don't want a new building. I don't want to spend any money more than we have to, but I'm just looking at the numbers that we just went over. And what I'm seeing for next year, if we funded everything that was suggested at $760,000, we're going to carry forward about $125,000. So out of that million something surplus, we need more than half of it. We need $650,000 to come over, and then we're going to have a surplus. I've never seen our surplus be so low ever.
Right.
So I'm concerned about that too. So that's why I think it's a really good conversation. I think Laura's point, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's the day, is that you just wanted to have this discussion so that we could have some ideas and then present this to the voters and see where they go. But unfortunately for an article, we do have to put some numbers in here. So I think for the building, I'd like to see what you all think we should do. Again, we're not going to vote on the warning tonight, but we do need to finalize it at the next meeting. So we don't need to put a number, but we're going to need to come up with a number. And so I guess I would like to ask for a process, and I'll get to you in 1 second, Chad. I need some suggestions on what you want to put in for a number. How's that? Is that a fair start? Okay, so let me go to Chad, and I'll go to you, Dwight. Okay. Go ahead, Chad.
Sorry, Laura, you triggered something in my head. I know we talked a little bit about this time last year, but our surplus, where is it being held? As you mentioned, it's not a good time to borrow, but the rates even for conservative investments have been really decent. Have we been using that money and our banking relationships to our advantage in the last 9 months?
So we will be. We're trying to get all of the policies in place, and I think that we're at that point. I'm actually had a meeting with the bank just before I went on vacation, and so we're going to probably dip into some treasury bills, some short-term treasury bills, which are paying about 4%. So we'll be, getting to that point of earning some additional interest. The interest that we earn, Heidi's on the call here, is somewhere around 2.5–3% because we have a sweep account. So it's not horrible interest that we're not getting, 1% or something like that. So we are getting pretty decent interest right now, but we're going to dip into the treasury bills, move some money over there. But that's really a function of your treasurer. So it's not really my function to do that. It's really the function of the treasurer.
Okay. And what sort of nut are we talking about dropping into the treasury bills? Ballpark figure.
Probably I would go 750 at this point. That would be my recommendation, but I would have to check with Marco to see what he thought.
So if we could pull closer to 5 on something short term, would you entertain it?
5 short term? How short term?
Well, hang on a second, Chad. It's not her decision. She just told you that. It's a treasurer's decision. Yeah. And I'm
not asking for a decision. I'm asking if there's consideration.
Yeah, we can bring it. We can make recommendations to the officers. So we can make a recommendation to the treasurer. It's ultimately their decision.
Okay. because I think we have some strong relationships to utilize and knowledge, from outside that, could be advantageous. And, it's unfortunate that we're getting in, literally getting into the game late, as we've seen with the discussion of rates falling. Chairman Powell's now backing off and saying, it's not likely till September. But, if we were able to have made this choice, back in October, November, certainly December at the high point, there's an additional full percent of interest that we may have missed. So I'll reach out to you on the side, Lori, with.
Yeah, I would actually reach out to Marco, to be honest.
Marco? Okay.
Yeah, really.
Yep.
It's really under his bailiwick.
But the other thing too is, if you remember out in California, there was a community that invested a lot of money in Enron, I think it was called. And for a few years they funded everything that way, and then all of a sudden there was no funds. And that's one of the things, because we've discussed this a lot in the past, I'm going back to when Mary Lou was our treasurer, and the problem is to make sure that it has to be funding that is, like a CD that's guaranteed. And then if you do that, you have to make sure you don't put too much in any one bank, because they're not guaranteed. And there's a lot of things the treasurer has to think about. So, but let's get back to Article 9.
Yeah.
Building. So your turn, buddy.
Thanks. Yeah, on your point, Rich. So the way I'm seeing it, like I mentioned earlier, is it seems like it's like a 3-year. It's like the next 3 years, and I'm wondering if maybe Lori can help us to kind of. And you mentioned taking some money out of reserve and put it into the capital, and I think we should combine that with a request that you're talking about, Rich, to the voters. If we can maybe do that over a 3-year period, where we do it, and then we kind of lay it out. That obviously each year I get it. Each year we're voting on it, but this is the plan is to do this. These 3 years. These are the improvements that we're going to make. So what I'd like to know is, how can we get this number for fiscal year, 20 in the positive? Like, what do we need each year to fund those 3 years? So we're back in the positive going into the years where it's kind of settling down.
350.
Well,
so
1.3 million, right?
Yeah, so
right
if
over
it's
3 years.
so if we're taking 250 out of reserve and we're asking for the 250, that's 500 each year, somewhere in that neighborhood. That would make sense. Like it's almost like we're matching what the.
But you're not guaranteed a surplus every year,
right.
So
No,
it's just this year I can say with
but we also
some
probably have to take
confidence.
some out of the reserve, even if there is a surplus.
Right.
So hopefully there is one. If there's not, we'll have to dip into it. But that way we're not getting too low. And we're kind of have a plan.
So just for that, I can do this really quickly. I think is we're looking at being about 500, right, short. Mm-hmm. So we take 250, say, out of the surplus because we got some other things to still cover, and we funded 250. That gives you the 500, right?
Yeah.
And then if you fund 250 next year, and then we've only brought the reserve down to a little under $1 million.
Right.
So we could do that same thing over 3 years, but it's also that's all we're going to use the reserve for. But we
there's still some left.
We still always want to have something because what happens the year of COVID, we went 300,000 over 250 in tuition, and we were lucky that we could cover that without having to go borrow. There were schools that didn't have the money and we're like, what do we do?
And in the meantime, we'll do. Obviously, we're going to go out and see what other kind of funds are out there, like you're talking about, Rich. What we can get from federal, what we can get from state, and maybe next year we can go to say, listen, we don't need to get to ask 250. We can just get it from those sources.
And what we could also do is, if we wanted to, we could move 400, which would be a third. And that's kind of the rule of thumb we always use. We didn't want to use more than a third of the.
Yeah.
Because we've actually, at some meetings, had people suggest that we just take the whole reserve and put it in and get the tax rate down and fund everything. But
So I just wanted to respond to Dwight I wouldn't recommend dropping, this is my recommendation, I wouldn't recommend dropping below like 800,000 in your reserves, not moving it, because the other reason that you have a reserve is if you have move-in of students, right? So it's actually the reduction in tuition students that has caused this surplus for this year, for 24.
Yep.
So, but you could have the opposite effect, right? And so you could be ending the year in a deficit because of students moving in. So you always want to make sure you've got a pretty substantial, in River Valley's case, right? Because you have that fluctuation of tuition students. So that's just what my 2 cents on the fund balance.
Good, sir. So what if we said, for now, and again, I'm just throwing something out, not that I agree with it, that we do, we leave this article like it is, with a transfer from the general fund and or yeah, how about take off the or, transfer from the general fund, raise in taxes. So it'd be a combination. We know we're gonna be 500 short.
Well, more than that, right? Because we
600, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yep,
6 and a quarter, right?
Yep.
Or 650.
Six and a quarter.
Okay, so we need to come up with 6 and a quarter. But again, that goes back to my other question. Do we have to do the whole roof this coming year? Can we do half the roof? If we do half the roof, this number's a lot easier to chew. Greg, he's got his hand up.
Hey, there are a couple gentlemen here from the company that gave us the quote, and they could probably, if we're interested in hearing from them, we could grab a little bit of insight on what it would look like to potentially do the roof in sections and what the potential options are from guys who this is what they do.
So Greg, guess what? I'm not going to do that right now. Why don't we do this?
Okay.
Why don't you do that for us, because we're going to discuss this at the next meeting. And why don't you come back with a recommendation?
That sounds wonderful as well, sir.
Is that okay with everybody? Because I think that would be good. Yeah. And I think what we're going to do is, on this article, we need to think about, so we'll have Lori get us a good number based on Greg's conversation. Greg will tell us, Lori can fill in, fix this chart for us, right? And we will come up with this building number at whatever.
Okay.
Is everybody okay? Are you okay with that, Laura? Yes.
I don't know what other option we have, really. I mean, we've got to fix the roof, but
But do we have to fix all the roof, or can we fix some of it? And Greg will let us know that next meeting.
right.
So we can maybe adjust that number, and maybe we do it over. It would be nice to do it all in one shot and get it done. But again, the roofs are 2 different ages now anyways in that building, so.
I mean, you're just balancing out. It's not going away. The roof
Right.
the following year, and you're just really balancing it out over the next couple of years. We're
I
going to be in the same spot next year at the same time.
Right, but but again, we'll have some better numbers, and
Right.
also I think when you look at this, I mean, there's I don't see. Greg, is there anything else that you have on the list that can be put off for next year?
Yeah, I mean, you could push out that fire alarm at Wardsboro if you really wanted. The hood was actually something that was requested by the fire marshal, I think 2 years ago. That's kind of on me to get that one done. So we got to put that one out to bid. That really should happen. I think your pre-K play structure for Dover should happen. So you got that like $100,000 there. I think that has to happen. But I think the other things we could continue to push out and monitor. The painting at Dover would be good. I know that there is starting to get to be some flaking in those areas, but again, we could even look into bringing somebody in just to look at some of those areas and kind of do touch-up stuff and do that in small pieces and not have it be a capital expense.
So can you just look at that stuff and have something for us in a couple weeks?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? I think that's good. Chad, are you? I don't know where you went. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So why don't we do that then, Lori? You can play with these numbers. You can make these numbers right.
Yep.
We can just so we don't have any surprises. Let's just confirm what we actually really think we're going to spend this year, not.
Got it.
So that we can kind of have a little bit better real number to look at.
Okay.
Is everybody good with that? So we'll fix that next meeting. So we covered half of it, Lori. You ready for the other half?
This should be somewhat
Transportation. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah,
No, go.
I know you don't. I know we're not going to be talking about tax rates, but I mean we have.
Yeah, we will do that next meeting.
The budget number we have to really.
Budget we already approved, the operating budget. So now we just got to finish all these other things so we can come up with a tax rate.
Yeah.
So, Lori, we're not looking awfully bad here.
No, so this is, I just carried the 50,000 that you did, that you're doing this year across the board. So I think you're in good shape, to probably keep it at 50,000. At some point, you might even be able to drop it down somewhat, but.
Yeah, if we drop it down now, then we can actually, though, a little, because you're showing next year with the purchase of the bus, we're still going to have a few dollars. And then if we get some kind of grant money from them, being whoever the electric bus people were.
Let's all cross our fingers.
Maybe. We
So it may be that this bus number 2 doesn't have to be replaced because
Right.
you're replacing it with the.
That's the plan.
Right. So you could drop it down for next year if that,
if you dropped it 40 or 45, we'd still be in pretty good shape. And as Chad was talking about pennies earlier, I mean, I know it's not going to make a big difference on the roof, but it is going to help. Is everybody okay to drop that to 40?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chad, you good with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a starting point. So if we need to adjust, we need to adjust, but it gets the ball rolling in the right direction.
Okay, so we'll have that one, and then you can fix that chart for us too, right?
Yep.
Is everybody good with that? So we got a lot to discuss next meeting. Greg will be the guest of honor, so he'll take some of the heat off of you, okay?
He always does.
Cool. So Article 10 is, shall the voters of the River Valley School District authorize the board to withdraw money from the reserve fund to offset the homestead tax rate, but not more than blank number of dollars. So what did we do last year? We did 2, right?
I think it was 80,000,
Oh, 80, I'm sorry.
if I recall.
When did we do 2? Must have been years ago.
200,000? You haven't done that much in a while.
Oh, okay.
See, I'm pretty sure. it was
I just
80.
remember at one time, we did have some movement to just dump the whole thing, and we wanted to be careful. So I think once we get these other 2 numbers figured in, then we can work on a recommendation there, because if we're gonna move some out of reserves into the building, then I think, we wanna make sure we don't dump all the reserves, and we wanna, come up with whatever percentage we think. So I think for that, we'll finish up with that next meeting. Great. Are you okay with that, Chad? Everybody here was shaking their heads. Either they hate me or they're trying to move me out.
Yeah, we're good to move forward.
Okay, so then Article 11 is any other business that may legally be addressed or open discussion for informational purposes. So I think we're going to cover a lot of the building stuff under that. I think it would be pretty germane under Article 9. But I also, I had put in here the website, because it's pretty much finished, isn't it? Anybody? Is the website pretty much
It's
finished?
just pending that last
Okay,
thing you guys
and we're
talked
gonna,
about last week.
right.
Yeah, that's the only
Okay.
thing. Yep.
And then,
Sorry, Rich. Yeah, I was going to bring that up because you have website in the rest of the agenda.
Okay.
So, as far as if we're looking for a cost, again, I think it would be important to hit what we have left in the budgeted amount, which is still a pretty substantial figure. That, again, there's not much need for it, but we do have it for additional training and any sort of upgrades that we may wish to utilize in the future, or return it to the fund to support other avenues of the schools.
so if we don't spend all the money that was approved, that will just become a surplus and it'll stay in. So I'm not worried about that. What I'm wondering is, do we want to, at the school district meeting, report out about the website? And that it's possibly finished or almost finished? That's a question for you folks. So under other business, we
Saying
don't.
finished, I mean, do you want to talk about it now or?
No, what I want to
Yeah,
talk
whether or not
about,
we're gonna-
do we want to, do we want to put that item, do we want to have a discussion of, under Article 11, under other business, to talk about the website, or do we think we've covered it enough that we don't need to discuss it at the annual meeting? That's my question, I guess.
I mean, I think it's a good time to let the bulk of folks know that are not part of this, the active school community, that the website is up. And as always, we welcome input from the community, and, just make sure that they know that it's out there, because they did approve the money to be spent. We have made every effort to bring forth a solid product, and the daily administrators thereof are doing a fantastic job. So doesn't have to be a long conversation, but I think an opportunity would be worthwhile.
Okay, thank you. What do you folks think? Yeah.
I think we should give an update, and I think, I want everybody to remember where we started this project and what all the websites and all that stuff looked like beforehand and where we are now. So it's been a big improvement, and we would like to thank the taxpayers for entrusting the board to update that piece of information technology. I don't know what the right verbiage is for this. Yeah, but
Not
that
social
tool,
media.
it's a tool.
So
Yeah.
Meredith, I guess because I'm probably the most technologically advanced member of the board, why don't you just note that I'll be giving a presentation on how wonderful the website is.
You have a slideshow? What are you
Sounds
gonna
like a
use?
great idea.
Yeah, actually, so
Totally with hand gestures.
It's gonna be one of the screen
How
Half sheet on it. How about like a half sheet?
yeah, so Chad,
Half sheet of paper.
chalkboard.
Chad, can you and Kate work on something to put together for a brief presentation so that it looks pretty professional and it's not me trying to bumble my way through it?
Excellent.
So claymation and film strips where it goes.
Exactly.
Oh, you mean like Gumby is going to come along?
Perfect.
Hey,
Guys, I happen to be really good at stop motion photography, so don't tell me now.
I'm totally
Okay.
into a kid.
So I think we're all in agreement on that. We'll leave that there. The other one I put in there was was Laura's request, and again we've kind of killed it above. But if we do want to try to put together some kind of committee, I think school construction aid repairs versus new would be a something that would come up, and we don't have all the answers, and again there's lots of theys out there, but theys we need to also see where they're doing. Do we want to have that discussion? Do you think we'll cover it enough above under Article 9, or do we want to have a separate brief discussion and ask for assistance? Don't all jump at once.
Yes.
What about you, Kate?
I think we have a really diverse community with a lot of knowledge, and I think if we let people know that we would love some input, that would be good.
Dwight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine to talk about. I'm just wondering, in what order. So, we're talking about the buildings, and then we're gonna, is that part of the conversation of the buildings?
Well, up top, I think
Yeah.
we're going to be presenting the capital budget, so we're going to make a recommendation that we spend this money on these
Right.
projects.
And then later
Down
on-
here is non-binding, so we're just going to say, we've had a lot of discussion when we were coming up with Article 9 and with the information.
Okay.
So one of the things we're thinking of doing is forming this, and we should, again, it's got to be brief. There's no decision to be made, but we can get the what did somebody used to call it? We can get the current of what people are
Pulse.
thinking. The pulse of the
pulse.
community. There you go. Thank you.
But we're asking for the money ahead of time before letting them know that that's not an option, but it's a...
No, because we need to present something
Yeah. Okay.
above then the discussion on a possible, looking into long term. Again, it's a minimum of 3 to 5 years. If the roof is leaking,
Yeah, it's gotta be done.
we need to fix the
All
roof.
right,
We
gotcha.
can't,
Okay.
it doesn't get better on its own. Chad, are you good?
Yeah, I was going to ask a question to try to answer your question, and are we looking for input above and beyond, different sets of eyes from parents who walk the building each day that might see something a little bit different, conversations that their kids have brought home about, what they feel. And I think that's another great time to, again, being a community, as we've seen with Wardsboro's playground, where we've had members of the community, volunteer equipment, time, expertise to give, to be able to have that from, the hardworking folks and let them know that, that would be appreciated somehow, some way, if it can help save money without costing them, out of pocket, that would be pretty fantastic. So, I think it's worthwhile to have, a small segment, because at the very least, at the end of the day, folks have a bigger chance to speak up and feel heard. And I think that's important for us to offer the opportunity at this type of meeting.
Okay, so what I think I'd like to do is Laura,
Yep.
this would be a really good thing for you and Dwight to come up with. Are you going to be able to make this meeting? Probably not.
When is it?
April
It's
30th.
this Tuesday, because you'll be gone.
In the evening?
Okay, yeah. Dwight, between you, Mike, and Laura, you guys look into
And we're
that
not
for
zooming.
us.
At what?
You, Mike, and Laura,
Yeah.
kind of just put together an outline of what we want to have a discussion about under that, okay? Okay. I think then, obviously, Article 12 is Article 12. It is what it is. So is everybody good then? Did anybody see, I did correct the one typo where I had the wrong school year. I mean, I had the wrong years, but other than that, I think we're in good shape. But if everybody can just look at it, it actually spell checked and grammar checked right. So, good. That was a good run through that. We're going to get to do it 4 or 5 more times before we get to the meeting. So, Donna can't wait. Tracy, are you still awake?
Barely.
Okay, sorry. It's going to get a lot more interesting now. So, before Lori takes off, we had 2 pay warrants. We had, we ran a small one because I guess we were waiting on an invoice or something.
Correct.
So I've got pay order 28 and pay order 30. What happened to pay order 29?
I don't know. I guess I would have to look and see.
Okay, so I've got pay warrant 28 in the amount of $1,633.87. And then I have pay warrant 30 in the amount of $709,929.39.
I would love to make a motion to approve pay warrant 28 in the amount of $1,633.87 and pay warrant number 30 in the amount of $709,929.39.
20. Did you hear what Kate said?
Yes.
Okay.
I would love to second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We did ask a question.
Yes, just discussion now.
Yep, pay warrant 29.
Is payroll, so
Oh.
that's why.
Okay, we don't approve payroll.
No, you sign contracts, so that approves payroll.
Okay, perfect. So, and 28 goes way back to the middle of February, so that was that because we didn't get the invoice.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions on the 2 pay warrants? Meredith, do you have those okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. You guys all ready to vote, guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? Members of the board, all those in favor signify so by saying aye.
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 Trying to keep her awake, but she's falling asleep on me. Okay, it appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is. We can now say goodbye to Lori. Thank you, Lori.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you for coming and visiting with us.
Yes.
Your final budget time.
Be around next year.
You're gonna miss this so
You
much.
are going to be around next year?
No, she
I don't-
isn't.
Yeah,
She's leaving
December,
us.
right?
Not till December.
I know, but we don't do this till
That's
January,
true.
February.
You guys are,
This is it.
do your
This is your last
budget a
time
little
with
late.
us.
Aw.
Do it the last. Oh, geez, Crow, you're gonna miss us.
I will. I'll
Thank
miss
you.
you, but I'll be on the road.
Now we gotta let
She
you
won't
out.
miss you more than she's enjoying retirement.
And retirement ain't all it's cut out. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Hey, Greg, so you can get out of here. Nothing new on PCBs, correct? Testing.
Scheduled. The last of the testing at Dover is scheduled for the 20th.
And everybody's coordinated?
Yes, everyone's coordinated. We have pricing, we have approval from the state and all that good stuff.
And they are paying for this, the testing, correct, still?
So far, we're still getting, things are being paid for. Correct, sir.
Okay, so it's just that we don't know about remediation, if there's going to be any funds for that.
It appears Monsanto has done what they do, which is make things slow down and make them cost more.
Cool.
We will do our best.
If you disappear tomorrow, I know who we should call.
Sounds good.
Is everybody good with PCBs? Chad, you all set, sir? Okay, thank you. Website update. No, there you go, Chad.
Then we're back to it, huh?
Yeah. You want me to
Okay,
cover this one for you?
What's that?
You want me to cover this for you?
This should be fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, there's a thing, you go push some keys on your computer and you get to this spot and it looks really good.
And what's really cool is you can say, "Hey Siri" or Alexa, and then have it happen without even pushing keys these days.
Okay, you just gone above my head, so go ahead, buddy.
All right, so where we left off last meeting was talking about the accessibility statement, and again, I want to thank Derek. I don't think he's tuning in, but he had continued the conversation. I know Bob, you had reached out to Derek, and he's done a fantastic job. So he reached out to Ed Rooney with EdWorks, and we've got some great feedback from Ed. And it's amazing, as Kate brought up when we talked about the articles, to really show the voters what they have enabled us to do by voting for this project. As we've been working on this, accessibility statements went from non-existent to something that has become prevalent. And even Ed had mentioned, I said, I don't believe it's a requirement, but pretty common practice, and definitely a signal to site visitors that some alteration or attention, has been paid to the needs of those using assistive technologies. So with that said, we had the footer there, but it was not linked to anything because it wasn't, again, something that was prevalent at the time. So he's suggested three options. One, we can remove the footer link and then not worry about it. We can create an accessibility statement using a boilerplate template that he's provided and connect that footer link so it does go to a specific location with value information. And, as you mentioned, should there be a concern complaint that is linked to that accessibility, we just need to know who is going to field that. So that is one step to take. And then third would be to create our own accessibility statement using our own language. Ideally, he mentioned that the district would consider subscribing to Accessi, ACCESI.BE, which is a provider of a full suite of tools for users needing assistive technology. We talked about budget, and it's good that we do have some reserve because this is a cost he suggests of about $500 a year. As we know, they were able to secure the contract for the town of Brattleboro after working with us. Brattleboro is using it on their website and suggests that we have a look at it as an example if it's something we want to do with our own. In addition to the tools for users that aid in reaching full compliance, the subscription includes litigation support in the event of a lawsuit over website accessibility. This was not a product that EdWorks had been using or endorsing when our project was proposed in 2022, but it is something that he does recommend at this point in time. He does say that there is no cost on EdWorks ends for getting it added, and it can be done at any time. So that was a phenomenal amount of information. Reviewing some of these statements and seeing what they can do. Very pleased with the knowledge that Mark Schauber brought to the committee when we were first underway and helping us to design a color palette that is manageable in the most broad scheme for any of our visually impaired friends and visitors. But again, the accessibility allows us resizing tools for those that may be more hard of sight, that need a larger print, as well as being able to convert the text into speech so that the pages are read too. So, no good deed used to go unturned. Now, no good deed is free. And so it's important that we consider all the above. Laura, I think you spoke very well at the last meeting in your support of having the accessibility statement. And I don't want to detract from that in any way. As we're learning more and more, I think I've come around a bit, saying it's not something we do a really great job as it is, being ADA compliant, but to make the statement, I think is extremely valuable. Again, we do have to consider the cost and where it falls within our budget and making that happen. So Derek said to me that he's going to take the boilerplate template that has been given and add the RVUSD element to it and get that set up so that it can be implemented. So really the question for us is long-term getting involved with accessi.be to manage the suite. And, certainly none of us want to see any litigation come forth, but I suppose it's nice to have that in our back pocket should it be, required in the future for any particular reason. None of which I could give you an example of what it would be like at this point in time.
Thank you, Chad. Any questions for Chad on the website update?
So Chad, it says $500 a year. You said to have that service.
That's correct, yeah.
You think we're paying mostly for it's kind of like an insurance policy almost for the litigation? Is it a way to do that without having that backstop for legal coverage?
Just use our insurance.
Yeah, or just roll the dice.
Caps too, and if there's a protection level that's capped at that ours might have a larger.
Yeah,
noise.
it seems like a lot for just.
Chad, so you're going to talk to Derek again, right, about this?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, can you just find out, what percentage of the 500 is for the insurance and what the coverage is?
Yeah.
Or is that something Bob should do?
Well, it sounds like it's with EdgeWorks, not Derek, right?
No, I mean, it's wholly separate. This accessi.be is something, it's a whole nother entity that essentially monitors and makes sure that, and again, because it's not necessarily compliance, it sounds, again, more effort driven. Like, are you doing what you can to be sure that, everyone that wants to view your website can do so with the faculties that they have? Again, much like for a multi-story building, do we have elevators for those that cannot walk upstairs? Again, here we are, we're less than 2 years from when EdgeWorks signed, we contracted with EdgeWorks to do this website, and the landscape has changed entirely, as they've admitted, and they're the professionals in the industry,
So by providing the statement is free, having the coverage is the additional money you're talking about annually.
Yes, yeah, because the language itself, they've got basically a form letter, if you will. And again, if you present the form letter, then we should be doing what the letter says, right? Because if we don't, then it sounds like someone who has any sort of bone to pick, big or small, has reason to say so. I see that Alan has his hand up, and knowing his background, can we take a moment and hear from Alan?
Yeah, I was going to get to him. Are you all set? You all done? Chad?
Yes.
Yes, okay. You folks all set?
Yep.
Lori, good?
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Alan.
I just wanted to give you guys a little clarity because it's an area I work in somewhat. There are two parts of any modern public-facing website that have compliance issues associated with them. One of them is the privacy statement. The other is the accessibility statement. The privacy statement is largely governed by statute now. California has a very detailed privacy law in effect that everyone just uses because it's convenient to use and it's fairly definitive and easy to follow. The accessibility statement, as Chad mentioned, isn't statutory yet. And the reason that it's an issue is because there's been a bit of a cottage industry that has developed. If you remember over the years, the stories of the lawyers who would group up a bunch of handicapped people together and then go sue everybody who didn't have a ramp. It's very similar to that right now. And they're actually using the ADA in the exact same way as the ramp cases, and they've had some success. So So these companies that are doing compliance for accessibility are mostly thinking about that exact situation. It's less of a public, it's a good thing to have for your potential, for current students, for potential students, for families who are looking into the district. But it's also, I just want you guys to understand what's really driving it is that weird little, it's ambulance chasers essentially.
There are people that do that, Alan?
Sure are. People that do that make a lot of money.
Wow. Hard to believe.
There's people that'll do anything for money. Anything you can imagine.
I can stand on one leg, one foot, and hold the other foot up and tap my head and rub my belly at the same time. Can that get me any money?
You can do it on the internet.
I'm sure there's somebody that's making money on YouTube doing it.
Yeah.
Cool. So are we all good then? Chad, you're all set then? You're going to just find out some information, or you and Bob will coordinate? And I think Alan, his hand is still up. I think he wants to volunteer to help you too.
We'll always accept pro bono legal services, right?
There you go.
I am not licensed in the state of Vermont for a very specific reason. That's so nobody can get me to do anything.
Well done, Alan. Well done.
Smart man. Okay, thank you, Alan. Chad, thank you, buddy.
So we're coming back to that.
Yeah, Chad's going to have something for us at the next meeting, so we want to make sure that this is on the agenda.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it seems like it's worthwhile to pay the $500 for the coverage unless we already have the existing coverage. That's what we're looking for.
But I think it's also the review stuff, and that way what we're doing is, I think, Chad, just so I make sure I'm understanding this, because again, it has to deal with technology, but it's not just an insurance policy, but it's also somebody checking our stuff and giving us input whether or not we're doing what we're supposed to do.
What we're saying we're doing.
That's the way I understood it. But again, listening to Alan speak, as he says, it's not statutory yet. So, to that end, kind of bridging between, Laura's initial thoughts last week and what Alan's brought to us tonight, that having the accessibility statement does make sense. However, paying someone and again, if our coverage is there, should an issue arise, paying a group money to monitor something that's not statute seems a little bit unnecessary. So long as we are paying attention to the trends that come forth, that's what I'm hearing. So have the accessibility statement. Let's make sure we're monitoring it. But paying somebody else to tell us how something should be done before it's been mandated, I don't know.
It sounds like somebody else formed another cottage industry and charging $500 to all these websites to check into something.
That's what I was thinking.
But go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I think I just want to remind us what the accessibility policy is for. And it's for all the people that can't stand on one foot and pat their head and rub their tummy at the same time, Mr. Chair. And I would like us, I am very proud of you that you can do that.
At this age.
Yes. I would just like, I'm in support of the $500, and I'd also, gathering the additional information, and I'm in support of it for that reason. I think we have two small schools, not a tremendous amount of admin. I find it, I'm a bit skeptical that we will stay on top of monitoring the statement, and think that's a nice low price to pay for somebody to monitor it for us. And I just would hope that we would not do the town meeting trick and really spend a lot more time talking about this than the roof or building improvements, which have a much higher price tag and much longer consequences.
Ramifications.
But again, if, like Alan said, if somebody's going to look to sue, you always go for deep pockets, and governments have the deepest pockets if you win. And, so I think Dwight,
easy.
Chad,
seems easy to keep ourselves from getting sued.
Yeah, so Chad, look, can you just let us know and make a recommendation at the next meeting? Is there somebody trying to come in?
And on top of that, and on top of keeping us from getting sued, it may actually be helpful to someone who that is in our district.
Right. I think to that end, Laura, since they do provide the assistive tools, that full suite, that in and of itself, I think, could be beneficial because I don't know what the additional cost, as Ed said, installing the widget will cost us nothing. They're happy to do that, because it's sort of a plug and play type deal. But being able to have the, font control, that's built in. I know, and Rich, I'm not mocking you. I really understand that there are many folks in your shoes that appreciate technology but struggle with it, and that's okay. So, the idea that the button to enlarge the screen is right there rather than have to figure out, what the shortcut keys that might be built in, in your computer. And the same for folks that are hearing impaired, there seems to be a lot of sensibility to that aspect. And I think, if it were just the litigation coverage, I would say, no. But if they're providing the tools that do assist any of our community members, any of our visitors in having a better experience, with us, then, we would do it for any child who's coming to school as our student. And if we can manage that, for visitors via, to us virtually, then there is a great deal of sensibility there as well.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Alan. Last comment.
Yeah. Look, and not to like belabor this, what is really a silly little point, but just to understand what you're paying for. If I get a website to do a compliance review for, the first thing I do is I check for the privacy statement and I check for the accessibility statement. See what accessibility tools they have available. Do they have a play a voice version of this button? Do they have the other button? And that review is probably 3 hours of legal time. And then, and so that's really what you're comparing it to. Like, or once a year, you're going to have your lawyer do a new privacy statement and do a new accessibility statement and verify your tools work. That's the difference. That's basically it.
Okay, so that makes more sense. Makes a lot of sense, I think. So, thank you, Alan. We appreciate that free legal advice.
That is not what it was. This was not legal advice for any specific situation. This was general information only available to anyone in the public. Thank you.
Prank caller.
No, it wasn't legal advice. It was input from it was definitely input from a taxpayer and a parent. So we appreciate your input, Alan. Thank you, buddy.
My pleasure.
Chad, you all set, sir? Okay. So let's move right along to principal's reports. So we got 2 written principal reports. Other than what was written in the principal reports, Tracy, you got any additional information?
No.
Donna?
No.
Any questions for our principals?
No, thank you.
No thanks.
It all looks good.
Chad, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Because then you guys are going to hate me.
What do you got?
I got a bunch of questions. You ready, Trace?
Nice.
Shoot.
Okay, were the cookies in Dover? No. Teachers are excited about the opportunity to explore and use EL education for high-quality literacy instruction. And I notice on Donna's it says EL curriculum conversation with staff. I also had this drum sound bath. I wasn't sure what that was.
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of interesting. So maybe next time you can expand on that a little bit for us.
That sounds lovely.
Because I'd really be
get that
interested in that. And I would love to take a drum and have a bath in it. But I'd love to know what it's about, seriously. But I won't put you on the spot today.
Let's go tap into your
That was me.
That was you?
My kids did the sound bath. So my PE teacher, Wendy Johnson, knows this gentleman who does sound therapy, and he brought in these hand hammered bowls. And he did some meditation with the kids, and then you set the bowls on your sternum, and then you hit them with a mallet, and you feel the vibrations through your body, and it cleanses your any kind of tension that you have. And I was a little skeptical, and I don't like to do things like that, but I felt like I needed to be brave. So I did it with the kids, and it was really kind of soothing.
I feel like this is something that we should test out before we test it on our students, and I feel like we could use a
I'll put it on the
cleansing.
agenda for next time.
Did you happen to take your blood pressure afterwards?
Yeah.
My blood pressure is always great, so I don't
Okay.
need to worry about that.
Because I was gonna say maybe I'll take it to the doctors for my next CDL physical, and I won't be so worked up.
I definitely feel like this could be right up your alley.
I feel like we should record that for the public, don't you think?
So we can't because I'd have to charge. So, but in all seriousness, thank you. I really appreciate that. Next time you're doing it, if you have, another person you need to help demonstrate it, give me a call. I'll come up and.
Well, we're gonna do it at a staff meeting, so I'll call you and you can come join us.
So I embarrass myself in front of the staff and not just the kids. But hey, so I just wanted to, because it plays into Bob's superintendent's report. So we have an executive committee of Wyndham Central, which is the officers and each board chair, and we meet once a month. We try to meet once a month with Bob, and we met with Bill in the past, and it's really kind of neat because Bob can bounce some ideas off of the officers who can say how's it going to be presented and give some input. And Bob had don't say her name. Oh gosh, Jen McCusick. He told me Jen. I got the last name. So anyways, Jen was talking about EL, and she was really excited. And what excited me was I did the tour with the superintendent candidate to all the schools and the different groups. And one of the things he kept saying was that I'm not big into elementary curriculum, but that's why I've got a great curriculum person. There's a great curriculum person in Wyndham Central. Well, even at this meeting, even Bob talked about curriculum at the elementary level, and he's really learned a lot. And so they spoke very highly of it. And we have a couple, there's actually a school board member on the executive committee who's got more time in than me. And their comment was, this is the most exciting thing I think I've seen since, I've been on the board, and I think it's really wonderful. So this EL is a really cool thing. So we asked Bob that we were going to have a super board meeting so that it could be explained so everybody on the board would understand it. We actually had another administrator speak to it that as both an educator and as a parent, they thought it was going to be so wonderful. Bob and Jen have figured out how to pull it off without having to using some grant money that's available. So for this coming year, the 24-25 school year, there'll be no cost. So what I'm really going to want to see, pardon?
What is EL?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that we see if Jen will come to, unless you two feel comfortable enough to present it. I'd like to see if maybe Jen will come and give us like a 10 to 15 minute kind of overview of it so that we all see it. But it's not a program that's presented to the students. What it is it's a program that helps the staff, the teachers, to create a curriculum to their that they can present to the students to try to get everybody onto the same level. Sort of what we did in Dover, like 20 years ago, where we try to get all the students to learn. So instead of spending a lot of time on it because they're not prepared, I do want to bring it on. But I just want to compliment Bob as our superintendent for bringing this. Tracy, between you and Donna, I really appreciate your support because it was important that, if all the administrators in buildings are saying this is no good, but it seemed as though there was support from all the administrators. And I did ask a question, what about the staff? And a lot of the staff hasn't been presented to all the staff, but the staff it was presented to, they were pretty excited about it. So I think it's really kind of a cool thing, and I'm hoping that if Kate reminds me, we'll get that on probably not the next agenda, but the one after, maybe the first meeting in April.
I wrote down.
So, go ahead.
Just and as an add to it, we have IB and we have STEAM in the schools. So I'll be curious as to how that interacts with those. We've made some pretty significant investments in those.
It's not a curriculum, and it's not something that's replacing it. It's just to help for English language EL. It's not to help with.
It's an early literacy program for. It is a curriculum, but it's not a scripted curriculum. But it does, because EL initiated from a nonprofit called Expeditionary Learning. it's actually blends really nicely with both
Great.
IB and STEAM in the sense that it's inquiry based, and there's actually labs that are part of it. It's for a literacy program. And then there's a real focus on a hands-on piece. So that's the part that we're excited about, because with what's happening in these two buildings, West River with PBL, I mean, there's a lot of natural connections for the existing schools and what they're already doing.
So the other reason why I wanted to hold it, because I'd like to make sure people know about it, because parents may have some interest. Maybe staff that isn't aware of it.
And teachers will be unpacking it during their grade level meetings this spring. We have the materials already ordered. They're going to be unpacking the stuff themselves. Over the summer, there's training opportunities. So we're really ramping it into implementation for the fall. It's pretty cool system. Jen's done an awesome job with it. So.
Okay. Bob, anything else for Superintendent?
No, my cabinet report will be going out next day or two. Well, not tomorrow probably, but probably Wednesday, Thursday. And for the month of March, so you get that shortly. Yeah, it's good to have the last budget adopted by boards, and we'll see how everything kind of shakes out. It's been a weird budget season. And yeah, it's just been interesting, again, being part of the process for the first time in this particular budget year. The challenges that have been that have come up through 127, but it's just been a huge learning curve for me, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. So yeah, I'm still digging it. Yeah, it's very different than being a principal, but it's just because everything's so new and fresh. It's cool. I'm engaged, and yeah, so that's great. I'm happy for Lori, and get her last district approved, and we're all on here.
So that's good. You only got 14 left. 14 more years of this.
No problem. No problem.
Cool. I won't be around.
I'll retire when I'm 50 then.
If there's nothing, anybody have anything for the superintendent? Cool. Any other new business from anybody? You all set? Laura's thinking. While Laura's shaking her head, Chad, you all good?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. So we got the February 26th, 2024 minutes as presented by Meredith. Is everybody good with those? Any comments? Chad, you good with those?
I have a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just under Meredith, new business, under Wardsboro, under 5, it's just PBIS. It says PBS. Sorry.
PBIS. So it's a typo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or,
Oh, under principal's report. PBS whole school celebrate. It's PBIS. Do you got that, Meredith?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So with that one correction, is everybody good with the minutes? Chad, you all set? I don't have any correspondence. Does any? Okay. So next meeting, March 18th, 2024, at 6 o'clock, and we got to finalize the budget. I mean, finalize the warning and the capital budgets. And then if we're going to recommend transfers.
So as far as the annual report goes, I can bring together, now that the budget's been adopted, I can actually bring together everything but the page with the warning for you guys to look at that meeting as well as a draft form?
No, because we can't bring, we want the...
Oh, the tax information wants to be...
And we also want
Gotcha,
the
okay.
capital budgets in there,
Yeah.
so people see
Okay.
why we're asking for so much more versus
So we'll
what we
hold
used
off
to
on-
have. And a lot of that's gonna, depend on what Greg finds out in the next couple weeks too.
So I'm just trying to think of the timing in the mailing of all that. The turnaround from Red House was pretty quick for the West River one, so I'm anticipating it'll be similar. And they do the direct mail from there.
Right.
So I'm just thinking if you have it and sort of give it the okay at the following meeting after that, that'll be the
Well,
1st of
I
April.
think, yeah, I don't think we have to give it the okay officially, I'd just like to get
So we can
people
do
to put their eyes
so I
on.
can get a PDF out to people, final check.
Right.
Not necessarily in a board meeting.
Right.
And then get it going. Does that work for
Just
people?
so
Is that what
that-
you've done in the past?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right, I just don't want to wait too long.
We've
that's
never
all.
approved the report that goes out, we just weighed in on it.
Sure, yeah, I don't want to wait too long and have us
Right.
miss the deadline, so.
Just to end on a positive note, actually, I don't even know if I can bring this up. So, if for some reason our budget doesn't fly,
Our budget will fly. Why do I say that, Laura?
because it always does.
No, because we have a live vote,
Yeah, no, I understand that.
and
I
so
understand that, but
people
we.
may adjust it, so they may,
Oh, that's right.
we may have
That's
a
right.
budget that's not what we asked for,
Yeah,
but it may be more or it may be less, but
that's
it'll be what we have to deal with.
okay. So, okay. Yeah, that feels.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So it's,
Yeah, that's why we like live votes, so that people can say to us, if people don't like the budget and want to vote against it, they're going to tell us why. You know, because again, if you just put a no on a ballot and say no to the budget, did you say no because the budget was too low? Did you say no because we didn't fix the whole roof and only half the roof? Did you say no because, you know, you thought it was too high? Did you say no because you didn't like Dwight's presentation? Did you say no because you don't like Richie? I mean, you know, we don't know why people vote no. That's why it's really good to have the discussion, because people can say, I'd like to approve this, but I think you should add more money for more buses, or I you know, I don't know. I don't know what people come up with.
yeah, it's not something I typically am that worried about.
No, I think that people are going to tell us, and we'll have some good discussion.
Yep.
I mean, remember one time we spent almost an hour on the Burton rate, you know, bouncing that around.
I
and,
think it was probably more than one time.
well, I was thinking the one up in Wardsboro when we did outside under the tent. You know, because there was a lot of questions and we got to answer them, and people said that I was going to vote no to this, but once I got to question it and get some more information, I changed my vote. And I think that's the important thing, is because you can just look at a ballot and a number and check a box, but when you get more information, a lot of times it helps. Maybe people voted against it too, and we're going to vote for it because we said too much. But you good with that?
I am.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, Chad, you all set?
Yeah, I am. Just a real quick question. When I brought up the banking element with Lori, who is it that we should best address?
Marco, the treasurer, the elected treasurer.
From the town of Dover.
Chad, send me an email.
Marco,
Is he froze?
No.
The ceiling fan's going.
I don't know what happened. That was kind of weird.
Okay, so send me an email, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
You got it.
You said, or you had something else?
Yeah. Are we in new business, or are we in like no man's land? So here's my thought.
No,
and
we
you
went
can
through
just-
new business, but
so,
that's okay.
Just also, and maybe bring this up at town meeting tomorrow, in the interest of keeping town meeting, would love us to have a conversation about Saturday or someday when, I'm just anticipating hearing some concerns around the state. So
do you want to put that in the agenda under other business?
Maybe bring it up at the next meeting that we have, or did we just finalize this?
No, we haven't finalized the agenda.
Right, we haven't finalized it. So maybe just bringing it up next time. And I apologize for not thinking about that sooner, Rich.
What did you want to add?
I like
Under
town
other
meeting
business.
and our ability to really engage with voters live, and I'm hearing more and more concerns about people that can't come, not necessarily to the school board, but like to the town and other things. And so, just seeing if there's some willingness to think about times that may be more convenient for a larger segment of the population.
And we,
For
you know,
town
the
meeting day
difference.
or school district meeting?
Either.
School district.
Okay.
No, we can't discuss
That's
town
right.
meeting. It'll
School
be the
district.
school district
Yes.
meeting. And we do something that town meeting doesn't do. We do have an evening meeting, so
Yes.
people usually aren't working.
Yes.
But, is there other ways to bring people?
I think that's better than
Right.
weekday.
Yeah.
But weekend.
But again, we've done
better.
some Saturday meetings, and we did a Saturday, and it was during COVID, but we had no better turnout than we have before or after that meeting. Last year, we had a pretty good turnout in Wardsboro.
Yeah.
But I also really noticed that it seems to be the same core group comes to both towns, but when we're in Dover, we have a little group of people that we don't usually see in Wardsboro, and the same in Wardsboro. Again, there's no perfect answer, and I can't believe people don't want to come see our smiling faces.
It's crazy.
Donna's ready to go. So
Pretty shocking to me.
you all set? Okay, if everybody's good, I would entertain that most important motion at about 8 o'clock.
8:04 p.m. I would second.
Okay, so Laura moves, Kate seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chad, good. Thank you. Hey, great meeting, everybody. Thank you. We got a lot of good discussion.